Hello, Steve here for Furnace USA, and if you live here in the Miami area and you're looking for a 4-star heating system, just give us a call on the number that you see on this page, or just click a link and you can actually schedule your own quote. On this video, we're going to talk about all things related to 4-star heating systems, like how it works, what your alternatives are and such. So to learn more about 4-star heating systems here in Miami, just continue to watch this video. One of the most important things that you need to think about with 4-star heating, let's say if you are building a house or if it's new construction, what are your alternatives? What could you do that's different than 4-star heating? So 4-star heating, essentially what it does, it pulls in the cooler air throughout your house. If you have an existing 4-star system, it pulls the air in through the cold air returns. Those are those long rectangular grills that you'll see in the hallway. They're usually one per floor. Sometimes in older homes there's a lot more cold air returns, but let's say there's 3 or 4 of them. It sucks in air from these cold air returns. It brings it back to the furnace area. It brings it down along the side of the furnace area. It sucks it into the furnace, the cooler air. Let's say it's coming back at, the temperature of the house, maybe 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It puts it into the furnace. It runs it through something called a heat exchanger. So that is the core element. That is the common connecting element between all sorts of forced air systems. There's something called a heat exchanger. What a heat exchanger is, it is heat that's being generated on one side of a, let's call it like a chamber, like a heating chamber. So there's gas and there's exhaust products and all this type of stuff going into a heating chamber. That heating chamber then runs through, and depending on the efficiency, that just basically runs out of your house. That's the chimney coming out of your roof, or if it's high efficiency, that's the plastic pipe sticking out the side of the wall. So that is on the inside of the heat exchanger, and that gets super hot. That gets very, very, very hot. As that's heating up, there's on the outside of the heat exchanger, there's a pathway for air to get through. So the air that's coming back from your house is going back into your furnace. It's going in the big blower system underneath your furnace, and then it's blowing up through. It's pushing past that heat exchanger. It's scraping all that heat off, and then that heat is going up into your house. So with 4-star heating, there's usually a temperature rise somewhere, depending on the age and all that kind of stuff, between say 30 degrees and say 80 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So what that means is, let's say the air coming back from your hallway is 70 degrees, it goes into your furnace, it heats it up to 100 degrees. If it's an old furnace, the temperature rise is much higher, so it passes through your furnace, goes up to 100. Let's say it's an old furnace, is going up to 130, 140, something like that, and then it goes out through your house. So what they found over the years is with newer furnace, they actually have a lower temperature rise for 4-star heating. And the benefit that does, the problem if the older systems, if the temperature rise is too high, it will essentially, the heat will just rise. It'll go to the top of the room. It'll make its way through the insulation, and you've lost it. By more slowly heating the house, so newer, more modern furnaces have a lower temperature rise. It slowly or more slowly brings everything up to temperature. There's less of a chance for the heat to dissipate and disappear. It spreads more evenly throughout the house. So that's where in older furnaces, older 4-star heating systems, there is a higher temperature rise. On newer 4-star heating systems, there's a lower temperature rise. So what are the alternatives that you have to 4-star heating? So one of the most common alternatives to 4-star heating is something called boilers. So briefly, what boilers are, a similar concept to 4-star heating. It's taking the cooler parts of the house, but it's absorbing that cooler temperature in the form of water. So a lot of times it goes through like a baseboard, goes out to a different part of the house, it goes out or underneath the floor, it absorbs the cooler temperatures, it brings that temperature back to the boiler, just like a 4-star system. It heats that water back up, it puts it back into a pipe. So that's a boiler system. So pluses of boiler systems as compared to 4-star heating is that it will heat your house more evenly. It will do it very quietly, but you can never have the benefits of what 4-star heating can give you. So the benefits of 4-star heating is that you can connect, you can connect a air conditioning system to it, or you can connect a heat pump system to it, or you can do other sorts of things with forced air heating that you can't do with other types of systems. So another option is something called a ductless mini splits, ductless heating. As opposed to forced air heating. Ductless heating is just an individual little heater that sits up on the wall behind, or it's put on the wall inside different bedrooms, different rooms throughout the house, and it provides heat to that individual room. It is forced air in a sense because there is a heat exchanger. It's usually not a gas. They're usually heat pumps. They're usually electric, and they're just for much smaller areas. So forced air heating generally, as an overall rule, it generally refers to attached or detached house with a ducting system. So you have a big flow of air spreading out and being distributed all throughout the house. So you're forcing the air throughout the house. Another alternative to forced air heating is something called electric baseboard or electric resistance heaters. They are your absolute worst option just because they'll cost you triple in terms of utilities. So they're not a fantastic option. Another common thing that people ask us is what is the sequence of operations? What's going on with the forced air system? So as I mentioned, the cold air is coming in. So the first thing that happens, you turn your thermostat up. So as soon as you turn your thermostat up, or as soon as there's a call for heat your thermostat, poof, the gas comes on inside your forced air system. It's going into the heat exchanger that we talked about before, and then that starts to heat up, tick, 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 tick. On the old school ones, it had a temperature probe, and once it got to a certain temperature, then boom, then the fan will kick on. So the temperature and the fan are related to each other. With more modern furnaces, it's more just on a timer, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, stuff like that. So that's your basics of forced air heating. Negatives and positives, pluses and minuses. I would say forced air heating, just because, especially the pricing and the cost, a lot of times is going to be the best bang for your buck. A forced air furnace, is relatively inexpensive compared to a whole house full of ductless heating systems. It's way less expensive than electric baseboard heating in terms of operation. It's way less expensive to install as compared to hydronic heating or boilers. So what it really comes down to, it's more cost effective. There's some drawbacks, there's some negatives. It's dustier, so if you have allergies or you have problems with air quality, it can sometimes make it worse because dust and stuff can get stuck in those ducts, and it's hard to clean. It's not easy to clean those things out. So there's some downsides. They're also a little bit noisier. You can hear them more. So if you're super sound sensitive, you're going to be able to hear it a bit better. But there's pluses and minuses. But overall, I would say for 80 to 90% of the people, a forced air heating system is your best bet. So thank you for watching this video about forced air heating systems in the Miami area. Hopefully we were able to give you some value. To schedule your own quote, just click a link on this page. Otherwise, just give us a call.